All right, all right, all right. Yeah. They're coming on board one by one. We're expecting a full house of 100 people. I see you coming on board. I see my speakers. I see Michaela. I see Steve. Tasha, there you are. Fantastic. Jen. Thank you so much, Jen, for chiming in about that technical question. Okay. And Blake, you got to take it off. I got to see your face, buddy. All I see is your photo. Hey, Megan. Elizabeth, good. All right, I got all my speakers. While we're getting everyone logging on right now, we're going to go right into some housekeeping announcements about just some technical things to be prepared for. One, we've already clicked it so that when you come on to this call, that it's going to automatically mute you. If we come to a point where we need to do some interaction of some kind and, you know, have some Q&A, what's going to happen is that you can go to the top right part of either your screen or anywhere where you've got your own video footage of you. What you can do is you click on unmute and we can interact at that point. But since there's so many people on this call, we're expecting a full house of 100 people. Since there's so many people on this call, we went ahead and made certain that it went to mute right away as you came in. Also, if you don't obey that rule and you suddenly decide to unmute and I hear all this craziness in the background, well, what's going to happen is you could do 50 burpees for everybody that's on the call. And that's something that we could all probably learn from anyway. Also, take notes. We have a handout that we're going to be releasing tomorrow. Or over the weekend. We just, there was a lot coming in. This is pretty fluid environment. Take plenty of notes. Tonight is a night of hope to help other people endure, to also know that hold on, pain ends. What we don't want to do is just focus on the fear. We want to lift people up and just in a time of crisis, give them some stories and strategies that are going to make them feel better about their situation at hand and come out better than they were before. I'm joined by several speakers this time around, and you know, I'm sure most of you have been able to follow how it's developed ever since we started making those Facebook posts and the Instagram posts. But I realized that when we put this mission together, when I say we, initially it was my wife and I, Stephanie, who a lot of you already know. She's a certified life coach and she'll be on as the final speaker in this lineup. When we were coming up with, hey, what to do next, we really felt it on our heart that there were some people out there that they're in a tougher spot than maybe we are. I mean, I put things in perspective by, you know, here I was just wondering, okay, I'm a public speaker and I'm no longer public speaking. And now I've got to reinvent myself. And then I'm getting a FaceTime video chat going on with my buddy that's in Cebu, Philippines, Archie Nellis, a great friend of mine who got certified in boot camp several years ago. And he's having to drive 2.5 hours on his motorcycle just to wait in line for 3 hours for a loaf of bread. That's putting things in perspective. And the person that we're targeting for at least the first person that we're going to drive into some sort of way of showing grace and love in this for this overall mission. She's a single mom of 3, just worried about being able to feed her children next week. And so while we know that this particular life coaching workshop that you're getting tonight is not, there's no requirement to be a part of that GoFundMe attachment to this. There is absolutely no requirement. We simply ask that if this is something that you feel that's on your heart to participate in, where we can help other people endure, that we can help hope, then good, you can be a part of it. But if not, we have other suggestions too, that maybe you can just go out in your community and help an elderly person that's having trouble just getting their lawn mowed, or they're in, I know in Blake, you probably still got snow up there or something like that, or get, shovel their snow off their porch or something like that, or do something to give to people that are having trouble just getting by. So again, we're going to have, I realized that when we put this together, we couldn't do it alone. And since we've already touched so many people by what we do over the years, it was just a perfect time to pull together other people to make a series of webisodes that focus on hope. Now, so I'm going to be joined tonight by some very good friends of mine. And, Jen Hall will be coming on right after me. And then following Jen Hall, we're going to have Tasha Edwards. And I'm going to give a bio for each person for their particular TED Talkish style version of hope. And Michaela will be after Tasha, and then Elizabeth, and then Steve, then my wife, and then I'll do a closing. So let's get right into it. Are you ready to take notes? And you can pull up the chat too if you wanted to chat between each other. I must admit that I'm not going to be able to keep up with that whatsoever, because it's just going to be a packed workshop. And I want to tell you, for webisodes 2, 3, and moving forward, our intention is not only to have some new speakers added to the current lineup, our intention is to get the CEC approved, so that we will add value while we're stuck in self-quarantine at home, or mandated quarantine, right? And so that we can add value to something that we just need to do anyway. While we're serving others, we could also catch up on those CECs, those continuing education credits. Good. All right. So let's get started with the introduction. I don't need to do a bio myself. I think you follow me enough to join in with this. I'm extremely excited that you're here, but I want us to focus on the objective. How do we find fortitude in the face of fear when our roles have suddenly changed, both personally and professionally? How do we find peace in a world of panic and paranoia? How do we adapt to our difficult times? And how we adapt to those difficult times is vital to having a victim or a victor mindset. Now, along the way, when Michaela and Jen and Elizabeth and Tasha and Steve and Stephanie and I were all coming together with our notes, Steve came up to me and he said, he called me right away and he says, "Yeah, Ken, man, how can we give hope when we feel like we're all messed up right now ourselves?" You don't have to have it all figured out to take the next best step forward. That's a fact. And your test today can be your testimony tomorrow. And that's a fact. So we don't know how long this crisis will really last. What we can be sure of, however, is that when the COVID-19 cases wane and wither away, what will be left in the surface of the pandemic's wake will probably affect some of us more than the virus itself. When I returned from Iraq, when I was overwhelmed with PTSD and known as post-traumatic stress disorder, my normal wasn't normal to anyone around me. I couldn't recognize the difference between stress and suffering. Now you see, that's an issue too, because stress and pain are normal. That's life. But suffering is where you feel hopeless and helpless to manage the stress in your life. And when you feel hopeless and helpless to manage that stress, that pain, what happens is you try and seek out escape in the form of alcoholism, even self-sabotage with food, bad foods, and sometimes life itself. But I realize that while we always don't get what we want, we always get what we choose. And I realized that I could either let the situations that I was facing either make me bitter or better. And then my wife came up to me one day and she says, "Don't worry. There are only two things that can happen to you when you face this adversity of any kind. You can either fall apart or bounce back." That's life. Now, once I realized that falling apart was not an option, I realized this is that, bouncing back, you never bounce back to where you were before, because what you go through, you grow through. You learn from your experiences. So actually, while we might go through what the Marines refer to all the time as embracing the suck, this might be a traumatic time for us right now. But the bottom line is that if you show strength in the storm, your struggle today will be your strength tomorrow. That is a fact. My son and I were looking out. We've had some really hard rains over the last several days in Nashville, Tennessee, where we live. And the very next day, after a series of rains, one right after the other, the very next day, we go outside and it's completely beautiful and sunny. He says, "Dad, how could it be that it was completely, torrential rains the day before and sunny today?" I said, "Son, it's just because you have to go through the storms to find where you can have your destiny in front of you. So don't let fear determine your fate." Now more than ever is a time for us to abolish anxiety, restore resilience, and to turn adversities into advantages. Now is a time for grace, love, and exceptional leadership for our families and our friends. Now is a time for us to choose courage over comfort and commitment over compromise. Well, that's a lot of alliteration there. Action reduces fear and increases courage. Action reduces fear and increases courage. Fortitude in the Face of Fear is a comprehensive webinar series that we're going to do that makes certain that we can lift people up and show them what it means to truly be resilient. That beating fear really means to face everything and rise. That's the new way to look at fear, to face everything and rise. The bottom line is, when the crisis is past, people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. People will honor you for you did yesterday, but they'll respect you for what you do today. So, saying all that, remember this: what you feel can be a deposit of what can be. All right, so that's just the introduction. I'm going to go ahead and get us started, because I too have some strategies, some take-home strategies that help us focus on hope and resilience, so that we can not only have stories, that we can have tactical ways of employing this into both our family life and our professional life today. All right, this is an excerpt of something I'm writing called the Social Distancing Survival Guide. And this is out of chapter 1. It's an excerpt. And so I've got the 7 superior strategies to create connection in a crisis. Number 1, embrace empathy. Some people confuse empathy with pity, sympathy, and courage. Empathy is the ability to understand how someone is feeling through shared emotions and understanding their perspective, even if you think differently about the situation. There are 4 different levels of engagement when reacting to another person's problems. A, pity. I recognize your pain. B, sympathy. I care about your pain. C, empathy. I feel your pain. And C, compassion. I want to relieve you of your pain. Nobody wants your pity or sympathy, especially during a crisis. Relationships are supported and strengthened by sharing emotions, empathy, and when possible, helping to produce progress over pain, compassion. Tip number 2, push for perspective. Well, issues become problems when you fail to accept them, or when you refuse to acknowledge that you're not perfect. And that when, you see, some situations are just beyond your control. So there are 3 steps to produce progress in the face of problems. A, acknowledge. Acknowledge the problem for what it is. B, accept. Accept the problem as something you can repair or have resolved, that it is beyond your control. C, address. Address the problem with action. So again, acknowledge, accept, address. Number 3, cultivate confidence. This is something I've been working on with my 10-year-old a lot. Suddenly when I was coming back from providing some water rower training up in the New England area in March 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, I was doing a little tour. I was doing a jump sport trampoline boot camp coach course in Boston. And then I whipped around and did some training with water rower. And then I come back and suddenly my wife was telling me, hey, they canceled school. We've got to set up a home study program. Now, homeschooling is something that a lot of people are already doing, but this is something that we've never even dreamed of doing. And so here it is, we're setting up things of way of getting our son into a normal routine, and we're researching to see if the school had anything in place, and they didn't. So we made a structure for him that had the classes that he would normally take, and to progress him in a right direction, but also to work on the bigger picture. Because we don't, what we got to see is what was happening, behind the scenes now in front of us. For example, he would sit there with that typical flexion that's going on because he's at the computer, or this going on. And so I told him, I said, hey, son, open up your body and sit with better posture. Try and practice proper posture. Build beautiful body language. And I told him, I said, listen, it's really simple. In an effort of cultivating confidence, if you build beautiful body language and you open up with beautiful posture, and I know Michaela is going to back me up on this one, if you build beautiful body language and open up with great posture, what happens is that you open up the body to allow the organs to do what they're supposed to do. And you're putting yourself in a healthier environment. And also, studies show that if you err on the side of confidence with your gestures and your mannerisms and the way that you convey yourself through your posture, people will gravitate toward you more than if you were kind of shrinking down like that shrinking violet. That's a fact. So, cultivate confidence. Number 4, have humility. A crisis can provide you the opportunity to share the real you. Oh my goodness. However, it's not always easy. It's it's too often in the past we were on Facebook all the time, and it was like the Lego movie. If I know some of you, I'm not the only one that has kids in here, and that Lego movie, everything is awesome, everything is great. Well, we suddenly see that not everything is awesome, and guess what? It's in moments of humility. It's in moments of humility and that transparency that we can really share our true selves, and people will appreciate that more than ever. All right. Tip number, where are we at? All right. Tip number, there it is. I'm sorry. Tip number 5, create a climate of consistency. Okay. Tommy Newberry is one of my favorite goal-setting coaches. He wrote a book called Success is Not an Accident. And I got to see some video casting of him doing a live version of Success is Not an Accident. And he says that, even if you are working from home, or if you're trying to establish some sort of homeschooling life, or whatever it is that you're suddenly out of work, what you need to do is set up a regular time to wake up every single day. In fact, you need to have a sort of zest about you when you wake up or every single day. You need to wake up as if you were a young boy or a young girl on Christmas morning. You ever see a young boy or a young girl on Christmas morning just kind of go, and hit the snooze button? Hit the snooze button? No. What are they doing? They're waking you up and saying, Daddy, Mommy, oh, it's Christmas morning. Yes. And that's what you need to do. No matter how, you can do it. Even if you have to go to bed earlier, What you need to do is make certain that you have some regularity in your schedule, and that's what's going to be a way of you to find strength in this storm. Number 6, restore resilience. A lot of times when I've been giving the either resilience training or the boot camp instructor certification course, I always end with how I think master instructors should focus on their lives, both personally and professionally. And because the words master instructor is the same as like black belt. What it means is you haven't really become perfect at what you do. What you've mastered is really how to be a good student. And having said that, what you need to do is practice what is called positive mental nutrition. What you need to do is, get into the books that you've always put aside. It's an ancient Chinese proverb that what you put in your eyes and in your ears has an imprint on your soul. It'll either lift you up or it'll tear you down. That's a fact. So you got to take a big step here. In a moment of a crisis, the easiest way to practice and restore resilience is to build yourself up, not only physically, but emotionally and mentally as well. I know that, when I was at the peak of my travel, my wife and I were full force ahead and reading as many books as possible. We have this private Facebook group, Sergeant Ken's Book Club, and we were talking about those books, once a month, because we realized that, after doing a little study before we started that group, we found out that according to the University of Pennsylvania, that 97% of the people in North America will never read another full book after high school. Yeah. That means only 3% after high school are actually going to read a full novel. I'm not talking about a Facebook post. I'm not talking about, just some short passage. I'm talking about a full novel. Like, how are you going to find out how other great people live their lives? And because this is really how do we build ourselves up. So in an effort of restoring resilience, I encourage you, practice good mental nutrition daily and restore resilience. Number 7, champion change. Are you living by results or reasons while you won't dive into your dreams? A crisis is the perfect time to emerge as something better than before. There are 3 simple steps to surface stronger when the storm subsides. A, dream. It is a shame. Isn't it really a shame that it sometimes takes a crisis to remind us how to dream again? I'm just as guilty as that as anyone else, that I was doing the work, and I stopped dreaming about what my bigger goals are. Just before this call, I had a great conversation again with Joseph, because Joseph is, I consider him one of these guys in my inner circle. He's out of Toronto, Canada. And, we bounced these ideas off of each other. And I felt good after the conversation because I'm back to this dream state. And it's a shame that it took a pandemic to get me back to that. But again, the 3 simple steps to surface stronger when the storm subsides is A, dream. B, develop. This means that you will need to take some risks to grow, both personally and professionally. And C, deliver. This means that you will need to put action behind your aim and create your new career with what you have already. People are thinking, like, what do I do? What do I do? And, Simon Sinek, he said it best on he did a video cast recently. It was a short one to his circle, his team. And he said that over this short little cast that he put on YouTube, he said that, he says that we're really in a time, one of the best times of our lives, because it's certainly not the first time that humans have faced a life-altering event. It's certainly not. Now, it might be the first time in our generation, in our lifetimes, that we faced a pandemic, right? But it's certainly not the first time that we've had a life-changing event. I mean, let's take, for example, when my son, he's now 10, when my son was born on the 4th day, when we were checking out of Vanderbilt, and the nurse said suddenly, she goes, okay, we're checking you out. And I'm like, what do we do? And she goes, you'll just figure it out. That's what parenting is all about. I went, but I don't know how. And it's just what happens. We find these life-altering events, but what doesn't destroy us develops us. That's a fact. And Simon Sinek was talking about how this, he says, what we're going to have to do is figure out how to make our career stronger within what we are already doing and alter those strategies. He said, for example, there's this fine dining restaurant in New York, close to where he lives, and he knows the guy that owns the restaurant. He said immediately he took his waiters and his food servers and his busboys, and he kept them in their uniforms, except he donned on rubber gloves and some masks. And he did delivery of those fine foods, those fine dining experiences where the tray came into that apartment that ordered the food, right? And he had the candles get lit, and they served it, and they came out just like you were getting room service at a hotel. Now, some people, of course, chose to have that, that cart probably outside that door and then have them bring it in themselves, okay? But the bottom line is this: he reinvented himself. And isn't that what we need to do? Right now, more than ever, this is actually a great opportunity for us to find strength in the storm. Well, I'm super excited to pass this along to the next person. Jen, I see you over here. I'm going to unmute you, okay? Looks like, all right, good. You're unmuted, and I'm going to go ahead, and before Jen speaks, I'm going to go ahead and give a quick little bio about Jen and why I'm so excited that she decided to be the first to volunteer to send this message of hope. Jen, ACE, AFA certified, and also a master's in education, is a former professional dancer that performed with superstars like Beyonce and Jay-Z. She switched her focus to dance and fitness education, teaching in kinesiology department at Georgia State University, and presenting dance-based fitness and business sessions all over the world. Jen's mission is to help businesses compete in the digital world through her company, Talk to Jen. Without further ado, get ready to take notes from Jen.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Sergeant Ken, for asking me to be a part of this. It's really exciting to see all of your names. Many of you I know personally and have worked with. And if you have worked with me, especially if it's within a program that I've written, then you know that I absolutely love acronyms. Hooray! So we're going to do a quick little acronym for hope that is relative to what we're all facing right now. So the first letter, hope, H, right, is going to be for history today. And this is the topic I'm going to talk to you the longest about, because some of you know a little tiny bit of my history, and some of you don't know any of it at all. So right now, while you're sitting there trying to be hope-filled, I want you to think about the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Seriously, the very worst thing. Now, some of you, I know your stories, I already know your worst thing. And some of you, I don't know at all. I can't tell you my worst thing, because in my life, I have had to learn to become a master of chaos. And all that means is I have dreams, I have plans, I have goals, I go towards those dreams, plans, and goals, and something insane happens, only to me and my lovely little family, that derail everything. So I want you to think, was there a time in your life that you had a huge loss? Maybe it was a business loss. Maybe it was a friendship or relationship loss. Maybe it was a physical loss, like a grief-stricken moment in your life. Or have you ever had to overcome some life-altering disease, a potentially fatal disease? Or has your spouse, or even worse, has your child? Have you ever come to a point in your career where you thought you were going up and up and up and up, and all of a sudden you hit a wall and went straight down? The reason I'm asking you to consider these things right now is that all of this history proves that no matter what is thrown in your face, you're still here. you're still here. You're still in the fitness industry or the wellness industry or the lifestyle industry, whichever industry you're in. The business of making other people's lives better. You're still here, no matter your history. So I'm going to give you this super fast timeline as quick as I can. So in 1999, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, lupus, and Epstein-Barr. Only 3 people in the whole world have been diagnosed with that. 2 of them are dead. I'm the only living person to have that diagnosis and still be alive years later. The tattoos on my hand, those are all the rounds of chemo that I've been through. I ended up having a stem cell transplant in 2013. It was an experimental thing. If you know me, I'll tell you it was a God thing. Nobody knows how I survived, but here I am. So that was just a little teeny tiny battle. At the time, I was a professional dancer. So I had to come off of tour with Beyonce to go through chemo. Hooray! So you can understand how that would be really chaotic in my life. And I wasn't able to pursue my professional dance career. I had to parlay it into something else. So, you know, you kind of have to look at your own skills when something like that gets thrown in your face and decide what else can you do if you can't physically dance, if you can't physically teach, if you can't physically be in front of people. So staying on this really quick timeline, my son was born in 2003. My husband at the time came home from school. He was a school teacher with flu-like symptoms when my son was 2 years old. The next day he was paralyzed. No one knew what was wrong with him. All they said was he's dying. He was in the hospital for 2 months. During that 2 months, I was in chemo, had to send my son, who was 2 months old, had to wean him first, send him to his grandparents to live because I was not supposed to go to the hospital to take care of my husband who was dying. What? All this madness was happening within this very small period. Eventually, they figured out what was wrong with my husband. He came home. He had to learn to walk again, do everything again. They told me he would never walk if he lived. If you know him, he's now my ex-husband, unfortunately, but he's a fitness pro. He can still run. He can still jump. He can still do all the things he could do before, but he had to work really hard to get there. In that same amount of time, that was 2003, 2006 is when I was dancing all the time on tour. Came back, my lymphoma came back really badly. But battled it, built my career back up, was running all over the world with many of you like Debbie Gleason, teaching all over at every conference that we possibly could as the Florida Girls. Yes, we were the Florida Girls. When in 2011, my son had an acute asthma attack brought on by the flu, caused a stroke. The kid was in a coma for 6 days. They told us he would die. If he lived, they would amputate his leg. He would be blind, mute, and mentally impaired. He's 16 and perfectly fine. He's an absolute miracle. He died 3 times, came back 3 times. We were in the hospital in CIRU, which is comprehensive rehab, for 60 days. Y'all, there's no quarantine like that. We all had to wear MRSA suits. We all had to wear masks. No one could go in but my husband and me. That was 2 months. And we were both completely self-employed at the time. Somehow we still paid our bills because of people like Sergeant Ken, who came up with things like this. But it forced me at the time, Facebook had just come out. So this is where I'm going to go into O for you, okay? So O is your opportunity. So here I am stuck in this hospital. I'm trying to communicate to people, but no one could come see us because our baby's so sick. And my family lives in California and we live in Atlanta. So I'm learning this Facebook. I'm learning how it works. And suddenly, if you didn't hear Sergeant Ken talk about it before, my own personal business is in the digital media space. And it started in that hospital because I was stuck there learning Facebook way back in 2008. And I just stayed on it. And that's how all of my social media business became something that was worth money, okay? So 2011, Chris is fine. 2012, we spend the whole year rehabbing him. 2013, I have a stem cell transplant. If you don't know anything about that, they almost kill you. So during that time, it was my opportunity to rest. And so many of you guys need to rest. You are overused, your joints, your muscles, your ligaments, your voice. Everything you use is overused. So take this opportunity and build into that routine Sergeant Ken was talking about, some rest. All right, so bring it up to 2014. Now my mom, now this isn't my biological mom, it's my stepmom, the person that I call with every problem I ever had. Been my mom since I was 3. She died, 2013. 2014, my dad died. 2015, my business died. 2016, my daughter died. 2017, my marriage died. 2018, after losing all 85 pounds and my whole body growing back together from the horrible surgery I had to have my daughter, I got in a car accident and broke my collarbone in my hand. And again, I could not teach, y'all. That's like 100 times I had to rebuild my career. And I'm only telling you this because history tells you that this train wreck right here has been rebuilt every time. You have your own set of history that tells you that now is your opportunity to rebuild, and you will get through it. You will. So on P, I just want you to be reminded, all of you have a distinct purpose. You're here, those of you who've been through traumatic experience, life-changing, terrible diagnoses, things that you fought, maybe it's an eating disorder, maybe it's bullying from your childhood. All of you are here for a purpose, and you will be here until you complete that purpose. So now's your chance to define it, or perhaps redefine it, or seek it out. So I encourage you now, Sergeant Ken was saying, pick up the books that you've put down. I agree with that statement completely. But go to Harvard Business Review and listen to some of the free things they have out now. Check out all the cool courses you can take on LinkedIn for free that have to do with your business. Like, learn the things you're not good at yet. And then I noticed there's some fitness companies out there. I'm not going to say a name, but I got an email today from one that is doing absolutely free certifications, and their stuff is not cheap. So there's a lot of that going on out there that you can find. So find your purpose, redefine it. And the last letter is E. And this one's the most important to me. So I define my success as a fitness presenter, master trainer, studio fitness manager, whatever title I have, as the success of my people. So if there's a master trainer on a team that I'm running and they're doing so super well, as much potential as I saw they have it and they're running with it, that means I'm doing my job. So I'm an encourager by nature. And the reason encouragement is so important to me is because I don't think all of you know how amazing you are. Each of you has a specific skill set that no one else has. Each of you has a specific talent, a way of expressing yourself, a way of expressing compassion and empathy that no one else has. There is no one else in the whole world that can be you as well as you can be you. So I encourage you, review your history. Take the opportunity, knowing that you're going to get through it. Find your purpose, redefine it in a way that makes you happy in this new world, and be encouraged that you will be successful. And that's all I have, Sergeant.
That is amazing. And you know what's amazing about Jen too? And look who just joined me.
And seriously, who can follow that, Jen? Come on.
I know. And you know, the great thing about Jen is she, I know her, and she probably rehearsed because that was on time, because I went a little over, surprise, right? And yeah, and she was right on schedule.
Perfect.
Yes, perfect as always. And again, the messages that we bring to you tonight are all very different. And I'm super excited to have Tasha Edwards. Tasha is a certified integrative health coach, personal trainer, and group fitness instructor with degrees in sociology and counseling. Tasha focuses on accessibility, inclusiveness, connection, and with a mindset in her health and wellness work. She is a Chicago native, wife and mother of 2, and loves reading, writing, dancing, and Starbucks lattes. So without further ado, I'm going to unmute her and bring Tasha as our next speaker. Welcome.
Thank you, Sergeant. Super excited and blessed to be here in this moment with all of these people that I respect, which is kind of awesome. 2020 was supposed to be the year of the comeback, right? And in that comeback, I've kind of overstretched myself because I wanted it back. And here we are. And so I've been thinking about the space in between and wanting it back so bad, and to find the courage to be in the present, because I'm never back, ever. Even if 2020 had turned out to be that year and 2020 is not over, I would never be back. 2015 was on schedule to be the absolute best year of my life. I was turning 40. My really challenged child had finally come together, and he was turning 18, and I had taken my first trip to Vegas to dance, and I was at General Mills in Minneapolis, and I went on 6 trips that summer, and everything was fine. The first weekend in November, I was at a training that was physically challenging, and I didn't feel like I belonged. And I pushed, and I felt so accomplished, like this is it. I finally got over this hurdle. This is my time. Thursday morning, November 12th, was my son's 18th birthday. I spent his 18th birthday in the hospital. He had been shot in the chest. Now, the short version is my son is fine. I'm actually in his room. So he's fine, and he's now 22. But life stopped. And so I no longer in the world as Tasha, the fitness instructor or the personal trainer, whoever. I was Tasha, the mom who was sleeping in a recliner every night. Tasha, who was embarrassed to go outside because the case was so very public, to the point that I was in Starbucks and there were people in front of me talking about my life and didn't know it was me. I would sneak home from the hospital. I was afraid of the media showing up at my house. They were calling me, they were emailing me. And now I've taught all these people, and they all know my life is imperfect. On top of that, I gained quite a bit of weight. All my adrenals crashed, my thyroid crashed, my cholesterol numbers flipped, if you've ever heard of that. And I was depressed, and I was trying to push myself back in that space that I was prior to November 12th. And it didn't work. And people were disappointed in me. And I was afraid. I was also in court battles that were constant, and I never knew when they were coming. And it almost killed me. I think there's a part of spirit that did die. And so it was almost like having to find a way to come from the ground up. Like Les Brown has a quote that says, if you can look up, you can get up. And it is the only thing that I could hold on to believe that there had to be something better, that I was not going to die when my son didn't. First glimpse of hope. I know that there is something else there because he didn't die. And I wasn't supposed to die right then, you know? And so one of the things was, when you start to believe that better is coming, you start to seek better, as opposed to being stuck with what's happening in the right now. And so that focus is so vitally important. And I know people think, especially when you teach yoga, and they think that's my life, and I walk around saying, woo, 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 everything's going to be fantastic. Words have power. And so it is speaking into the existence that I want to operate in, you know? And so that's growth. Growth is moving out of what was, because I could stay there, into what I knew I could walk into, or what was waiting for me. And those opportunities were to understand people with PTSD, become more gentle with people with trauma and injuries and weight and depression. It expanded my business because I was not only the instructor, I was the person walking alongside of all these people having the same struggle. And so I decided there has to be more. Then people say, well, if there has to be more for you, there has to be more for me. That's where it starts. Everything starts up here. It starts with a thought. All of us in some way, just, and I know Jen, so I know her story, and it still like shakes me every time I hear it, but we're all going to have some type of obstacle, whether it is things that maybe we've mentioned. Maybe you lost a class, maybe you lost your assignment, maybe you lost your business. And that is hard, and it's often embarrassing in the fitness world because you're on top, and all of a sudden it's like you're nobody. And we get this emotional feedback about being somebody, and our falls are so public, and that's hard to deal with, you know. But suffering is a choice. Staying stuck in those places is a choice. And so we can either lie down with it and be done with it, or we can decide to not suffer anymore. And some of that is really telling yourself, I have to get over myself. I mean, that's the short version. You have to confront your stuff. You have to sit with it and decide whether you're going to be comfortable in what has already happened to you and just live with that, or step up to be a conqueror, knowing I've done this before. I've overcome this obstacle before, and I'm not done. I'm just not done. And when you feel like you're not done, you always find something else that pushes you forward. And that's a conquering spirit. It's just the way it is. And it's not something you're either born with or you're not born with. It's something that you decide to have and you pursue. Everything's about action, you know? And your brain has to be on the goodness. I will be honest with you. I did not have hope. Felt absolutely destroyed and miserable. But in this profession, people were counting on me. My son was counting on me. My daughter was counting on me. My husband was counting on me. The community that was supporting me was counting on me. And you have to sort of adjust your why sometimes, because if you don't do it for you, there's somebody waiting for you to take your spot so they can take theirs. There's somebody waiting for you to step up so they can step. You are their encouragement, whether you believe it or not, whether you have 2 followers or 200,000. There is somebody that is in your space waiting for you to say, yeah, I can do that. Because they're saying, if Jane can do it, if Debbie can do it, if Kristen can do it, then I can do it too. And all of that's a risk, y'all. Faith is, you have to risk surrendering your old story for the newness and hope. And that's what this is. Maybe you don't know Facebook, maybe you don't know Instagram, you don't know Zoom. Or are you willing to risk what has been comfortable or what has worked for you in the past in order for you to step into the space that you're supposed to be in? This is not an accident at all. So it's really time for us to get that in our heart, even though our head is stuck on being in quarantine with our kids who eat snacks every 20 minutes. It is getting your head in the right place. And so my hope for us is that we can take what we have here and spread it. And just be encouraged, knowing that your next assignment, you're being prepared for it right now. And it's going to take you places that you never even imagined you were going to go. And walking into that requires faith. Walking into that requires risk. Thank you, Sergeant Ken.
That was good, real good. Oh my goodness, this is good. This is working out. You know, again, this is as fluid as it gets. We really threw this together not too long ago. If you've been following on Facebook, it's not perfect, right? But it's a work in progress. And like I said in the very beginning, you don't have to have it all figured out to take the next best step forward. Our next speaker, oh boy, you're gonna love this. Michaela is the creator of several original fusion fitness formats such as Vinyasa Row, Bar Body, Yoga Smart, and Free Flow. Her style of teaching has been centered around creating authentic connections and building community. And she is committed to continue teaching this way from an online platform. Michaela resides in with her husband and 2 daughters and two cozy little cats in a townhouse in Chicago that is feeling cozier every single day. All right, so we'll unmute you and bring you to the spotlight. And Michaela, take the show.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. So glad to be here with you all. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me here to share. I'm so excited to be here to spread this message of hope and encouragement. This is so important and so dear to my heart. I've been having a lot of conversations about this very topic with a lot of my friends and colleagues who are just, this is what's weighing on us, right? All day, every day, we think about this. We think about a lot of other things too, but a lot of it is about what am I going to do and how am I going to get through this? So I've been thinking about how I'm going to share my message, and I'm kind of coming at this as a yoga instructor because that's what I do and that's who I am. So I don't know if there's a show of hands, other yoga instructors out there. Awesome. Great job, Tasha, by the way. Loved it. So I was going to share this quote with you. If you feel lost, disappointed, hesitant, or weak, return to yourself, to who you are, here and now. When you get there, you will discover yourself like a lotus flower in full bloom, even in a muddy pond, beautiful and strong. By Masaru Emoto. So I wanted to draw attention to the lotus flower, which is celebrated in many cultures, including Hinduism and Buddhism, as a symbol of resilience and overcoming darkness and suffering, as a symbol of hope and strength. So something that we can all kind of think about as what we're going through, being kind of mired in this dark time, but finding this opportunity to find strength within us and courage and reach for the light and grow, find potential and possibility and love and light within us and share that and just find these opportunities to grow. So that's kind of the theme of my message tonight. And I wanted to share with you a personal story. And I feel like after hearing what you all just talked about, it's really not that big of a deal, but you know, we all have suffering, right? And that's the humanity, just bottom line, is that's what we all share. And some of us, you know, experience suffering in our, you know, personal lives in a different way, but it's all really important that we feel it, we experience it, and we find ways to overcome it. So I want to talk about my emotional roller coaster that I've been on just these past few weeks. And I think it's something that we can all really relate to because we've all been shook by what's happening and how it's affected us personally and how it's affected our families, our friends, and maybe we're wondering how we're going to survive it. So basically, I want to go back about a month and think about what was happening 1 month ago. And at that time, I was the group fitness coordinator at this luxury gym in Chicago. And we kind of were realizing that there was this thing happening and we had to make some adjustments. But you remember that, right? I mean, it was like, let's buy some wipes, you know, and like, let's put some extra hand sanitizers so that we can, you know, make sure people feel comfortable coming to the gym and we're not going to, you know, lose members. And then like, it was quickly and rapidly evolving into something way more and more every single day. And I had to come up with new processes for booking every class and cutting capacity and making sure that people had enough space between them so that they could safely work out. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, is that even safe? And like, am I safe? And then, you know, it gets to the point where we're worried that the gym is going to shut down. And then I'm also kind of hoping it will, because I don't even know that I'm safe to work out there. And it was really like a stressful and scary time to be working at a gym. And so then finally, after that very scary and stressful week, we closed and we all got laid off. And it was sad and scary and hurtful. And we didn't know what was going to happen. Like, you know, you don't expect that you're going to be doing this, you know, job that you love one moment and then the next day applying for unemployment. It was just extremely a shot to the heart. And I did not take it well. I was crying a lot and watching the news a lot, which is not something I usually do. I kind of like lost all my routine. I wasn't working out at all. Usually I'm at the gym all day, every day. I work 7 days a week. I'm totally a workaholic. And I had my kids at home with me. I'm homeschooling my children. This is like not my thing. My name here says Chloe and Iris. That's not my name. I'm Michaela. But that's because they do their like Zoom workshops with all of their enrichment programs, and I don't even have my own computer anymore. So my whole life is turned upside down. I was not handling it well, and I'm drinking heavily, crying a lot, and very depressed. But I had to make a decision, like you said, Tasha, to not let this destroy me and not let it affect my family in this negative way. I had to be strong and had to choose to rise up and face these challenges and become a stronger person and not give in to fear and darkness. So I created a routine that we could live with and that we could, work with our schoolwork and get our housework done and try to find some new ways to continue teaching from a new online platform and still feel good about it. And I found that, that made me happy. I could reach out to my students again, and I worked out with my kids every day to stay active and bond with them in that way. And it was very fun and good. So we could find fun and good things to do during this time of isolation. And I could find ways to connect with friends and family on platforms like Zoom, and connect with old friends and new friends from near and far, and have these conversations that felt like we were together. So social distancing didn't mean I was alone, and I could still feel like myself and still feel like I had a purpose, like you said, Jen. And that made me feel like I could survive this. Like I wasn't stuck in the darkness, and I could still reach up for the light and find potential and grow. So I hope that we can all find that lotus within us, even in this darkness, and become that beautiful blossom and encourage others to do the same. So I hope that doesn't sound too schmaltzy. Here's something I want to talk about that's a little more interactive, okay? So rather than asking you to unmute yourselves, but I do want you guys to participate in this a little bit. I've got my eye on the chat over here, so if you can type, I'd love to ask you to give me some feedback here. What are some ways that we can support mental, physical, and emotional health during this time? So you guys can just kind of shout out here and I'll read the answers. But when I was going through my dark time, for example, I was neglecting my mental, physical, and emotional health in a lot of different ways. And when I made some healthy changes and I became happier and felt like I could survive, it was because I made a lot of positive changes to support my mental, physical, and emotional health. So asking people what they're grateful for, I love it. Okay, what are you grateful for? Good nutrition and self-compassion is so important, says Trisha Silverman. So thank you, Trisha. I think those are really awesome answers. Good nutrition is so, so important. And it's so easy to dive into that kind of nasty, bad habit of comfort food, right? When you're like stuck in isolation and you're kind of like, that sounds good, that'll make me happy, but it's a really short-term happiness. And then, okay, I'm getting more answers. Being okay with not being okay 100% of the time. The possibility of being mentors to one another. So helping and connecting with other people and being okay with not being okay. Giving yourself permission to have that bad day or that bad moment. Part of an encouragement group or several, yes. Connecting with other people and knowing that you're all going through the same thing. Tasha runs a few on Facebook, so connect with Tasha and get in on those groups. Finding something that brings you a moment of joy each day. I love that. I've been reminding everyone that stay at home doesn't mean stay inside. So getting some fresh air, getting some sunshine, so important for feeling alive and connected with nature. Limiting screen time and meaningless scrolling, yeah, or getting stuck on the news, right? Because that can be really stressful. Ugh. Okay, these are so good. I love this. So you guys feel free to keep on reading these. Also, getting a little bit of physical exercise is really important. Doing some yoga, if you have a yoga practice or you want to start a yoga practice, really important. Reach out to your friends, make sure you're staying connected, nurture those relationships that feed your soul. So just kind of segueing on from that, I want to introduce you to a breathing exercise. And this is called the 4-7-8 breathing exercise. I'm sure a lot of you know this exercise. It's also called the relaxing breathing technique. And so this is a great breath exercise for if you have trouble sleeping and you want to fall asleep at night. I'm sure a lot of us are having trouble sleeping. Or if you wake up in the middle of the night, you can't fall back asleep. It's also great for reducing anxiety, for managing cravings. So if you're having trouble managing the proper nutrition, this is a good exercise. And for controlling your emotional response to things. So if you find that your emotional response is kind of overwhelming. So the technique involves breathing in through your nose, just kind of relaxed breath in through the nose for 4 counts. Hold it for 7 counts, and then exhale with a whoosh sound through the mouth for 8 counts. So let's all do this together. Can you sit up tall? Good. Inhale through your nose for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hold it in. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. Shh. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Now breathe normally. I hope you feel calmer already. I'll leave you with a call to action. My call to action is this: commit to helpful thoughts, words, and actions. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be happy and free, and may my words, thoughts, and actions in some way contribute to their happiness and their freedom. Thank you all. Mwah.
That was awesome. Jess, awesome idea. Relaxed. This is going well so far, really well. Our next speaker, Elizabeth, is a fitness educator with over 20 years in the fitness industry. She is a program director and a master trainer at Balatone and a senior national master trainer with BOSU and Surge Performance, and a master, where's the rest of it?
Oh no.
Oh no.
They're page numbers.
Oh, there it is. And a master trainer with Xavier Fitness Programs. She is known for explosive intervals, electric coaching, and innovative programming. Elizabeth thrives on creating a group experience. She uses her master's in education, wellness coaching experience to creating unique individual transition plans. Her capabilities in counseling and coaching influence classes, personal and program development. She can be seen regularly on Mass Appeal as a fitness expert and on the blog for Bosu and Headstream Fitness. So let's put the spotlight on her and get ready to take some more notes from our next speaker.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of such an amazing event. And it's a true honor to be able to follow these amazing people who've shared stories that, my gosh, they just speak to so much resilience. So very tough acts to follow. I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey to start, and we'll finish up with a couple of calls to action. I'm always going to love you. You're always going to be my baby. I'm always going to want you to feel safe and protected. Those were the last words of the last conversation I ever had with my mom.
Jesus.
I vaguely remember after we started to plan her funeral, walking into Macy's, and it was just this insane thing. I can't tell you. I was probably wearing pajamas, I'm sure. You know, there was no hair, no makeup. I couldn't feel my body. And as I didn't even know why I was there, but I thought her send-off had to be pure beauty. And I went to buy a shell, and if you don't, those are my mom's words. And if you're not sure what that is, something she would wear under a jacket. And as I went to pay for it, the woman at the counter asked me if I wanted a gift receipt. And I said, no, I just want to make sure my mom looks beautiful at her wake. And then I burst into tears. She came from behind the register and came up to me and put her hands on my shoulders. And she said, child, I know you're hurting and you will heal. But you need to know that you will hurt like this again. That's what we call life. Prior to my mom passing, I had just walked away from an abusive relationship where we were involved personally and professionally. So part of that walking away included losing a business, another family, friends. And it was just a time where you just jump into fight or flight and you do what you have to do. And my mom always said, Elizabeth, she's like, you're doing such a good job. She's like, you just jumped right back into everything. And those women that you work out with all the time and do all those things that I'm not quite sure what you do, she's like, those are your board of directors. And don't you ever forget that that's your board of directors and that's who you go to. And these were the women who said that they would get me through. I share my mom's death with you for many reasons. Most because we're all suffering or experiencing some type of a loss. There's some type of death or grieving. And grief it's really an unexpected change that we didn't want. In our own way, some of us will rebound quickly. Some of us maybe not as quickly. But we will eventually find the way to turn that hurt or that burn into our fire. Part of my path in learning to live without my mom was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I decided these 3 words popped into my head, and it was purpose, power, and poise. We'll talk about purpose first. We look for purpose, I feel sometimes, and we're like, I want to know what my life's purpose is, and I want someone to tell me what that is, and I feel that so very much myself. But you know what I learned is that purpose is actually found in the moment. And that's why I shared that story that I could barely get through about her last words, because I didn't know that she was going to die. I didn't know. We literally got off the phone, and the next day I found out when I was on a train coming home from New York City. That purpose, that moment, that conversation, when we go back, or when I go back and I think about that, who gets that much of a perfect, beautiful goodbye? Like, those will forever be my last words from my mom. It does not, you guys, get any better than that. It doesn't. As a fitness pro, I talk about moving with meaning all the time. I want people to feel everything. And for those of you that know me, like, I am emotional, and it can be, it can be like my tragic flaw, or it can be that thing that sets me up and above. And I learned through the death of my mom that how I was going to deal with that emotion was turning pain into purpose. I met the night before my first Mother's Day without my mom. I met a woman, Brenda, who I refer to as my spiritual advisor. And after speaking with her, I was pretty calm that first Mother's Day. And Brenda always says to me, notice what you notice. And that's one of my favorite things. Notice what you notice. And when something feels good and it feels right, go there. Go there. So when we talk about our purpose, mine became finding ways that I was going to live my life honoring my mother. And that had turned into any other why of what I ever wanted to do with my career. Really, it just changed in an instant. So my purpose is to live in a way that honors my mom. So 1 was purpose. Number 2 is power. Power is within each and every one of you. It is. And I need you to feel that right now. And I know that it's scary. You take a big breath in right now and you exhale out. And if you need to cry a little bit or a whole lot, it's totally okay. But you have that power that's inside of you. We don't need we don't need to let the current circumstances or loss or grief or failure in life or even the coronavirus, those things do not steal your power. They do not have to steal your superpowers, and they don't have to change who you are, and they don't have to change what your purpose is. So I want you to really dig in deeply, whether it's tonight or tomorrow or when you get to digest this a little bit, and think about what you're going to do to get your power back. Do not give it away. Your job is also to share your power, you guys. Everything that's happening, all of our stories, my gosh, I mean, there are so many individual stories, there are so many collective stories, and they are all so very important because our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions are true. But there's a big picture out there. And in part of your healing or dealing with your grief or maybe finding your purpose, if you're willing to give out your superpowers, there is going to be somebody out there who is going to think you have been the greatest thing. That person, that driving force that lets them finally say, oh my gosh, there's that person that gets me. There's that person. I never knew anyone could relate to my story. And we might think that our superpowers are super small. Maybe there are surgeons, maybe there are people curing disease. You're magic makers. People come to you to feel better. You play the role of DJ, of online fitness business now, but we are therapists, we are healers, we are magic makers. Those things are important. So please, power, don't be afraid to share yours. Poise is the third one. And I always think of poise because it was my mom that put me into ballet class. But when I think of poise and how I need to start to recollect myself and how I know you can start to recollect yourselves is with poise. We get to choose if we're going to show up. We get to choose how we're going to show up. And then we get to choose how that's going to look. Sit on that for just a second. We get to choose if we're going to show up. We get to choose how, and we get to choose what that looks like. So with all of the emotion that I'm hoping I'm sharing with you, I give to you your first call to action. One of my favorite drills that I do when I'm coaching clients, no matter where they are, is I say, okay, I want you to get out a big notebook and you're going to write down people from your life, past and present. Maybe you don't like them anymore. Maybe you're not in touch anymore. Maybe there's no relationship anymore. But at some point, all of these people in your life, past or present, attracted you for some reason. And I don't mean physically. Write down all the qualities of all of those people. And then when you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm really feeling weak today. If on your list is Sergeant Ken, when you think of resilience, how would he show up today? He knows. How would he show up today? If you're thinking about somebody who's going to show up and calm you and center you and be super loving, is that something that you admire in Michaela? You get to choose these qualities when you're not sure where to go and how you need to reshape yourself, and start to realize all of the things that you are attracted to in other people, and you have an opportunity to emulate all of those things. Finally, you're the CEO. You are the CEO of your life and of this experience, you guys. And it's hard. I'm not going to tell you I've got it down pat. I struggle every day. I know we all struggle, self-love and self-acceptance. And I'm not telling you you've got all the answers, but I do know that we are the CEO. And you get to choose your challenges, and you get to choose how you're going to conquer them with purpose, power, and poise. So now I give you your second call to action. I challenge you to establish your own board of directors. Find those people in your life who are your go-to people for certain things, because every good CEO knows that she or he cannot do this by themselves, not well, not without burnout. We cannot do everything by ourselves. We all have a role on the team. And even through this experience, we can just feel how so much better it is when we're together. My mom, she would tell you to get to work, and she would tell you to believe. She would also tell you, and she would also want you to know that you are loved, that you will always be somebody's baby, and that she will always want you to be happy, safe, and protected. Thank you for this opportunity.
That was beautiful. Oh, amazing. Amazing. This is, just my cup of life is being filled at the same time. And we didn't know how this was going to turn out.
It's amazing.
It's going
I've just
better.
loved hearing everybody's perspective. Unique.
The personal stories are really what sells it all, because and like I said earlier, it's a shame it took a pandemic for us to bring us together at this level, instead of just, teaching a class and then saying, hey, I'll see you at the next one. Our next speaker, Speedball Steve. Oh boy. With over 22 years of industry experience, Steve is well known for programs internationally at universities, flagship hotels, celebrity trainer, stints, and community associations. He is a former director, manager, lead instructor of a martial arts school chain, a career mentor, author of business and movement education courses at SCW, and director of peer mentor onboarding at the Boutique Fitness Academy.
Look at Trisha, it's awesome.
Steve has contributed to magazines, newspapers, live TV, podcasts, reality TV, online articles, and trade publications worldwide. A creator of global fitness brands, he's a leader of wellness retreats, school programs, and camp programming for ages 5 through 70. He is his workshops, examinations, as well as consulting, and an advisory board member for a number of accredited brands. And I know it's late for him because he is in New York. So without further ado, let's give the spotlight to Steve.
Thank you, Sergeant Ken. I appreciate you guys having me, and I got to tell you, I'm really enjoying myself so far. What a wonderful group of people. Not only is it late because it's New York, and we have New York listeners right now, but it's late because I have a 7.5-month old child. And so many of you can empathize. And Elizabeth, I love what you said about being the CEO of your situation. My only challenge would be is if you have a 7.5-month-old, you really have sort of a chairman of the board who lives with you. It's very interesting. I am going to endeavor to be as efficient as possible because I'm going to try and get us on a time frame in which we can finish. This is already the shortest presentation I've ever been scheduled to give at 10 minutes. So we're talking about progress procreated through panic. And there's going to be a lot of alliteration. I'm going to attempt to match Sergeant Ken's skill set in the alliteration department as best as I can. And I will actually also, Ms. Jen Hall, I will hit each letter as well, just one time. So the first thing I want to say is let's pretend it's 7 p.m. in New York. Okay, we're on total lockdown here. And in case you guys aren't aware of the situation, we are told as of today that we all have to wear face coverings if we're going to leave the apartment, which we're not supposed to at all. So at 7 p.m. every night, there's a celebration of the fact that we have first responders who are going out to take care of business for us. And basically what we're celebrating is that we're surviving and that we have people who step up for us in the face of a great adversity and personal peril. So every 7 p.m. we step outside onto our balconies if we have them, or we go onto our roof decks or our fire escapes, or people go out into the corners of the streets just for a couple minutes with safe 10-foot distancing, not 6, and we clap. So just do it where you are if you're not going to wake up a child. I'm going to do it lightly because my son's room is right behind me. Just clap to be alive. Clap to be happy. Clap to be with people who are like-minded. Clap to be with people who are literally full of hope, or else they wouldn't be on this call, or are being filled with hope because they're on this call. And now I'll move on with a very practical approach, and I'll keep my sad story professional and not personal, and I'm going to make this as pertinent as possible. Ooh, all those P's, Sergeant Ken, I know you're getting jealous. We have to celebrate our frailty is the first thing that's important. Honesty is the only way through. The only way out is through as a group. And there are people hurting, and I have already lost people. And I know people personally who I've known for a long time. We're talking about decades, who went through 9 or 10 days of hospitalization. This is a real thing. But the good news is some of those people made it out, and they are the people who are the healthier sect of the population, the people who have honed their bodies and have created some sort of armor. So we're going to talk about emotional armor, not just physical armor. So I invite you to either say out loud to yourself in mute verbal participation or silent participation at any point in time in order to move forward through this. When you're looking for guidance, you're looking for light in the darkness, as Michaela put it with her fantastic lotus flower analogy, as was or as is my way. Like services, it's welcome. You can just do it reciprocally in your mind or out loud. Get ready for some hopeful, helpful, optimistic realism. Okay, so empathy is the force that it's going to drive us through this. my personal firing and hiring that changed my life in the fear cycle. And I'm going to tell you this story because it has an immediate follow-up in a very important sort of side-by-side comparison. So I thought my life was going to be martial arts. I ran a martial arts school, as Sergeant Ken was kind enough to mention. I was a young man full of hope and dreams and really excited, full of pride every day. I had hundreds of active students that came into my school. We had 5 schools when I had started with this company. We had 2. We were growing and expanding. We were a force on Long Island. And we thought we were going to be one of those things that makes it wide. Turns out that my boss, who he and I did not end up seeing eye to eye, the entrepreneur that he is, and the way things ended up, did take his brand worldwide, and it has hundreds of franchises. But be that as it may, it's where I learned a lot of my business skills. And so looking back, I am no longer harboring any ill will or frustration, because the first thing we have to do if we're going to encourage strength and hope is to find compassion, as I believe Tasha had talked about, compassion in the face of other people's criticism. It's not easy, but I was running a school and we were doing a great job, and we were supposed to go into business together. And I thought that was literally going to be the rest of my life. And then one night, quietly, as we were going to get ready to shoot our videos and begin our franchising, and we were supposed to start a business together and sign a lease, and I was going to be a 25% owner at 22 years old in a martial arts school, in a brand that I helped build over 5 years. I was quietly fired on a Friday night, never to see my students again, report cards hanging on the wall, movie nights and field trips, demo teams and displays in parking lots and street fairs for 5 or 6 years of my life. An impressionable person that I was. And it was brutal for me, because not only was it an emotional stab, but it was a business stab. I mean, I was 7 days a week for 6 years. And then I woke up one day having been thrown out of the place that I had the keys to, with no job and no purpose. And Elizabeth was just talking about purpose as one of her P's. And without a purpose, we are lost much more easily than we are with one. So I spent 3 days going directly into the worst parts of my personality, diving into my addictive ends, going on a complete drug and drinking bender, as was my way. Feel free to say it if it was your way at one point in time. Our frailties make us stronger, because, as Sergeant Ken, what doesn't destroy us not only defines us, but develops us. And then I woke up 3 days later in a haze and said to myself, okay, so what's next? What do I do now? And I made a contact who came through a good friend of mine who I had helped through a troubled time. And I ended up becoming a trainer at Reebok Sports Club, which is now an Equinox, but once upon a time was a unique, powerful 70 personal trainer on staff, celebrity-filled glory of the Upper West Side, and now is even more beautiful than it was then. The heyday then was incredible, and it was incredibly competitive. But I went from a circumstance that I thought defined me to a new circumstance that allowed me the opportunity to spread my wings and fly. I never would have traveled the world. I never would have been invited to some of the most wonderful places on earth that I would never afford to go on my martial arts school salary unless I became an impresario of the fitness industry on Boutique Fitness Change, which the boom hadn't hit yet. I mean, we're talking about 1999. It's a long time ago. So I'm thankful for the direction that my life took. I am compassionate and empathetic for the situation I had experienced and the people that I dealt with that may not have behaved in the best way, and for the lessons that they've learned, frankly. And so that's my little sad story, and it's directly business related. And I want to tell you that this is one of those times where a lot of people are going through exactly that. They've woken up like Michaela did, and all of a sudden they can't find their why or their where. Forget their why. Everybody knows their why in this business. If you've been in it long enough, it's your where. Your where. We're digitally floating. We're talking heads. We're digital representations. We're avatars of our bodies. It's a literal out of body experience. It's cosmic and it's incredible. And so in order to bring some order to the chaos, pun intended, and wordplay, I'd like to talk about fear versus panic. And as a fighter, and Sergeant Ken will be happy to corroborate some of this information. We call fear Frankie Fear. Rocky called it Frankie Fear in Rocky V, which was the second worst Rocky that was ever written. However, there was one good passage when he's talking to Tommy the Machine Gun. Frankie Fear, he talks about. And Frankie Fear fuels fighters and frames friendships. So Frankie Fear can keep you safe. Fear makes you cautious and careful enough to not make massive misjudgments, which we will revisit at the end of this talk when we talk about career path. And also frames friendships, because it forces you to consider your actions and your behavior. People without fear of reprisal or consequence have an unhealthy balance of id and ego, and there's an issue with the way they deal with people. And there is nothing wrong with being afraid. Embrace fear. We don't have to conquer fear. Fear is a part of us. It's a healthy part of us. It should be a part of our business operations and a part of our personal operations, because it teaches us to temper our actions, to think about what we're going to say before we say it, even if we're not able to constantly instill the golden rule of do unto others, or think about how that person reacts. If our empathy is one step behind, if our mouth is writing checks quickly that our emotional, that our EQ can't cash, fear will stop you from doing something that completely burns a bridge. Burns a bridge by being too honest, especially when talking to other trade professionals, as was my way. If it was your way, I totally understand. Let's all just own it and move on through it. Pamela Panic. She propagates the pandemic and paralyzes people. So we have to refuse the effects of panic. And I'm sitting in ground zero. I'm sitting in an apartment that, thank God, I can go up to a roof deck or step out on a balcony. We're sitting in a place in which we're all supposed to look like we're extras in the show The Watchmen. Like, that's where we are right now. And that's nothing to say about the business. The panic of all of the fitness professionals throwing movement vomit up on the internet in every direction possible, just to cry for attention and try and stay relevant. It is extremely difficult in this atmosphere, especially with the talent level and the survival instinct to immediately maintain likes and gratitude. But gratitude doesn't feed my child, and gratitude doesn't pay the rent. Whole nother subject. You have to find a way to add your personal value rather than just making yourself available in a sea of availability. We, your support system, the people who are mentors and faith-based people and career guiders, and facts about how this disease is going to affect our economy and our industry. We are your armor. Organizations like IDEA are your armor, and ACE your armor. People who are lobbying Congress right now are your armor. We are the people who are here to help these organizations. And so just know you're not going it alone. And we'll talk about that again in a minute. If luck is A plus B, everybody says it's preparation meets opportunity. How does this equation balance on both sides during the quarantine? So whoever talks about how opportunity comes about, preparation is obvious, right? Write your content, know your content, learn your content, influence people close to you, build your tribe, build your team. All that's easy. Getting ready there's a whole list, and any comparable or comparable mentor can help you with that. But how does opportunity take place, especially in this condition, the condition we're living in? So you're not alone. Run the chain. Take this time to open up your file of facts, your virtual Rolodex. Talk to people who you haven't spoken to in a long time. Reconnect and rekindle, and more importantly, reach out to people on social media that you maybe haven't had the guts to do so, or people who you always felt like you'd get along with wonderfully, or your career goals align or your brands align, but you just never really had that good reason. Now is the reason. Everyone is receptive, everyone's available, and everyone's wide open. Take risks that you wouldn't take with communication right now. I believe that you'll find them fruitful, number one. Number two, ask for what you need. Ask for what you need. Look, a lot of us are struggling here. I have a viable, very profitable personal training business. And it's very sad that my clients are displaced and they're in the age group where they're hiding in quarantine in different areas. And some of them have actually become physically ill. But I'm on the medical side, the post-rehab side. I do active release technique. I actually put my hands on people. So virtual training for one-on-ones is not as much of an option for me as it is for others. So when I do my group exercise, I've created this over-the-top TV subscription base. I'm asking for what I need. I'm asking for compensation, for contribution and compensation. I'm setting a price range. I'm trying not to ask for a suggested donation like everybody else is, but it is what it is. Ask for what you need and ask your neighbors and friends for help. All right, we're helping a neighbor directly near us, picking up packages and picking up mail and doing things that we can do to be helpful, throwing out food that's going to go badly in their refrigerators. We have keys to a couple of apartments. Just do what you can. I know it's different in the suburbs than it is here. Find a value proposition. What is your value proposition? What are you doing so well? What can you offer to people for the donations or the contributions that you're going to ask? It better not just be burpees and squat thrusts or jumping jacks. Find a value proposition, make it unique, and connect with those people. And they may become your people forever, and it may redirect your business. And temporarily accept the unacceptable. Temporarily accept that this situation isn't acceptable, that people are going to be unwell, that there are going to be casualties, that this is a nationwide thing, that you live in a city where it is the worst of it or the 40th of it. It doesn't matter. Accept it. You can't beat it by yourself. You just have to actually absorb that and then move on with it. There's no reason to pretend. If fortune favors the bold, how do we harness our boldness? And the first thing you do, if fortune favors X, you define your X factor. Again, what makes your offering personal to you? What can you trade off of that somebody else who is live on Instagram can't trade off of right now? Do a real 360-degree personal and professional assessment. Now, this is amazing because you find out a lot about yourself when you watch yourself on camera, listen to yourself on tape, when you have to connect one-on-one or 3-on-1 or 20-on-1 or 40-on-1 or 200-on-1 like I did in Zoom this morning. Find your strengths, and more importantly, again, find your weaknesses. Collaborate, not compete. Okay, think of it in a trade show. If you have a booth, a lot of fitness presenters, we're basically at the same time fighting for the same business. All brands in your area were online. If you're in the cardio department or the yoga department or the boxing department or whatever department you're in, we're all scrapping for some of the same stuff. However, we can build relationships that then last much longer after this is over if we collaborate. So I'll jump in to anyone's live stream. I'll jump into any fundraiser right now. I give myself, we should all give ourselves. And as Sergeant Ken says, if you give yourself a little, it'll come back to you tenfold. And that's going biblical on it, as he likes to put it. Businesses built during tragedy have two ways to win. It's either a pool party or a mountain hike. So you're either making a belly flop or a cannonball, which means you had a silver bullet. you were the best at what you did or the first in, so you made the biggest splash. Or you're shooting lead bullets and you've got a lot of ammunition and you're hiking up the mountain slowly because you're making it because it's worth making. It's your new baby. The world is going to be different. We have to embrace parts of the new normal and allow planet Earth to provide the example. You know, I mean, there are plants that function in some of the most arduous environmental conditions you've ever seen. There are things that live with over 1,000 pounds per square inch of water pressure in nearly complete darkness, and they thrive because they've found a way to evolve into those circumstances. And whatever the new normal of our industry is, we can do the same thing. Hope is a function of heroics, opportunities, perseverance, and evolution, to tie all that together in that order. So let's be heroic. Let's help our friends and our neighbors in any way we can that doesn't put us at risk. Let's take the opportunities to reconnect and run the chain and make new relationships while everyone's receptive. Let's persevere through the unfortunate and uncontrollable and temporarily unacceptable times and ask for what we need in those mean times from people who can help. And let's evolve in the face of the new normal and watch for the new fitness industry trends and make ourselves as lead bulletproof as we possibly can. Thank you so much for listening. I hope some of this was helpful, and I'm now going to pass this back to our fearless leader, Sergeant Ken, and I just want to thank everybody else who's spoken before.
Amazing, 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 just amazing, truly amazing. Oh, wow. Our final speaker.
Oh, don't.
Yes, you're going to get it anyway. Too bad. Stephanie Weicker is an associate certified coach, business strategist, or rented lips. I'll return in the morning. Take two. Here we go. Business strategist and a strategic director for Start Fitness. She has performed life coaching workshops for the Tennessee Army National Guard Warrior Fit Camp Program, the Kentucky Army National Guard Operation Immersion Course, Tennessee Army National Guard's Children Attitude Motivation Program, Can Fit Pro, Empower Fitness, etc. In addition to being a life coach, Stephanie is certified as a personal trainer through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, has a BA from San Francisco State University and an MBA from King University. I might add, she got the MBA while I was traveling 280 days a year. Okay. And as she was raising our child. She's amazing. Behind every good man is a great woman, great counterpart, great significant other. So without further ado, get ready to take notes for her message on hope.
You know, first I just want to thank the people who have spoken, because listening to Jen and Tasha, Michaela, Elizabeth, wow, Steve, hopefully I'm not missing anybody. What?
Elizabeth, yeah, you got it.
Did I get Elizabeth? Incredible stories, just incredible. It's amazing. And I'm sorry, Jen, that we didn't figure out the tech early enough with you. Sorry about that, but that's okay. All right.
She's better at this than we are.
My speech doesn't include the same kind of heartfelt stories. It's a little, I included something that maybe is a little bit more lighthearted, but then I'm going to talk about hope. So really my goal today in this wrap up, because I'm a little bit shorter here than the others, is to help deliver just and reinforce a message of hope. So here's a story, and it's a pretty lighthearted story, but it was about 9 p.m. in Wuhan, China, 2 years before the coronavirus outbreak. The air was muggy, and dark clouds would give way to a monsoon the following day. There was a small group of us, including my husband and my, at the time, 7-year-old boy, who were in a mall on the 4th floor that had a basketball court. And it had a partial covering. We were so busy setting up the sound system, and we were rocking out to the music and grooving to tunes that we didn't notice that the mall around us was closing. As we went to leave that day and we tried to push the elevator door button, we realized that the elevator wasn't coming. And they had actually closed up everything, as in there was no exit. Not even an emergency stairwell left open. At first, I thought it was a little funny and then a little bit scary. My 7-year-old son, he began to panic. It looked like we were going to have to sleep in the basketball courts that day without any access to bathrooms. So we wandered the hall and we waved and we yelled at the security cameras, hoping that someone would see us, and either nobody did, or somebody thought it was funny and they just wanted to keep watching it because nobody came for us. In that moment, you have two choices: panic that you are stuck and can't even call 911 to come and save you, or hope that by some small miracle, someone will come and let you out. You see, sometimes you need hope for the little things, like being stuck. Or sometimes you need hope for the big things, like getting through the coronavirus worldwide pandemic. You know, I'm a certified life coach, but beyond credentials, we really do, Ken and I both do, understand firsthand the need to cling to hope and how important it is in recovering personal value. According to research published by the University of California, Berkeley, hope has two components: pathway and agency. Pathway is a roadmap to achieving a goal, one that has alternative routes when obstacles arise. Agency is an individual's belief, motivation, and confidence that he or she has what it takes to achieve a goal. And sometimes after life's big problems, or sometimes during life's big problems, our hoper can feel stranded behind a locked door. But here's the deal. Ken says this all the time: you don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. After this huge problem, you might feel like you are behind a locked door. And I want to encourage you, just like for us in the basketball courts that day, there is a way out. While we were going from door to door and from security camera to security camera, hoping that someone would just find us, our event manager was on her phone. She was texting and she was calling, and she was able to finally reach somebody that had a key and access to the elevators. We were giddy that day as we climbed into the cabs and we headed back to our hotel. Like the research suggests, hope has two components: pathway and agency. Agency is first established in your own inner dialogue. For hope to grow, you have to first change what you are saying to yourself. For those of you who are needing a breakthrough in one area of your life right now, know this: you are closer than you think. Courage is contagious. I'm going to say that again. Courage is contagious. Each step builds upon the next. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. You just need to take the next best step forward. And you got a lot of people who gave you good ideas. What's the next best step for you? The solution to fixing an oak tree sized problem often comes packaged in a mustard seed sized solution. You won't be able to fix the entire issue overnight. Maybe you will, but some of us won't. But progress requires us to bypass the ugly cloud of discouragement, roll up our sleeves, and take one faith-filled step forward. In fact, if that step becomes a goal it will become part of the pathway. So my challenge, and a lot of us laid out challenges, but my challenge to you is to stretch one area in your life that needs confidence over the next 90 days. We may not even be in this situation that long, but what is that one area that needs a little bit of confidence? Set your intentions and create one goal that you have the motivation to achieve. This next step toward that goal is central to building the positive momentum you need, not only to move ahead, but it just might be your next step in creating a lasting legacy. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. What a way to end it. We're going to do a quick wrap up because I know we went probably 20 minutes longer than we had planned, but there was so much content that we wanted to provide you. And again, we think that we're going to do this every 2 weeks. It feels like it's something that we can do every 2 weeks with existing speakers and some people who also want to come on board. Again, I know that some of you that are on right now have already expressed interest to be a part of this mission. And so reach out to us directly because we can't do it alone.
And hang on, I'm reading these notes, and we love you too. Oh, and you're pretty wonderful yourself, Connie. So I'm just looking at these comments has been great, and having all your feedback and having these other speakers, like I said.
And we'll drive a lot of this to Facebook and Instagram for us to kind of interact with each other and use those platforms as a way of us get traction when we are in a state of distraction. That's what's going on right now. To get traction when the crisis creates distraction, because how we view things determines how we do things. Because sometimes we get lost in information instead of imagination. Now is the time to take Stephanie's challenge and to take all of the strategies that you learned tonight.
Employ your creativity
and make it happen.
Yeah.
Have intentional living to actually put action behind your aim. And then what you're going to find is that crisis is about adaptability, not conformity. Conformity is about hiding, to wait to see that it just ends, that it'll be just like it was before. It's not. And what we're doing right now is preparing us to be our absolute best in that new you, whatever that is. So remember, this was just the first episode of a series to lift you up, to have some stories and strategies to help you both personally and professionally. I want to thank all of the speakers that volunteered their selfless service to help you. And I got something from all of them as well. Again, there's no requirement to service that GoFundMe connection to this all. However, like Steve had also reiterated, all it takes is for you to reach out to a neighbor, someone that's in need, and do something that can help them, because we're all in this together.
And there's somebody who has to sign off. They got only 5 hours to get to drill. You go now. Go to bed. We love you. Thank you.
And I see people from Lebanon, and I see people from Canada. Bless you. And I see another person from the Philippines. Bless you all. The recorded version will go up first thing tomorrow morning, if not tonight. And if you have any questions, reach out to us directly. We ran out of time to have a Q&A. We'll try and do another one for a Q&A purpose later. And don't forget to practice Michaela's breathing exercises before you go to bed tonight.
Thank you for all of the places in the world that you've signed on from. We really appreciate you. Just thank you so much. We appreciate every single person.
Having said all that, we bid you good night.
Good night, everyone. Be well. Thanks for listening.